Hello, this is Lordy, aka Patrick, and this is my channel where I discuss the video game industry and gaming culture as a longtime video game creator. I was at BioWare from 2008 to 2011, contributing to both Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. Today I want to talk about some of my experiences working at BioWare. Mark Dara, former executive producer of the Dragon Age franchise and contributor to classic games from BioWare's past, posted this video talking about what BioWare Magic means and why it's BS. While I agree with him, I do think the BioWare I went to go work for in 2008 still had some magic prior to the leaving of Ray and Greg, the two founders of BioWare. And while the internet does love a good shitpost, today I want to highlight the best of my experience to elevate the conversation around great leadership that I saw there and the things that did make it special. I originally worked under Mark when I joined BioWare in 2008, and prior to his moving to the Dragon Age team. Mark is brilliant. As smart as he is, it's his emotional intelligence, that ability to relate to people and understand people and help them be successful, what makes Mark one of the best leaders in video games. And Mark, if you're watching this, please make more games. During my first week at BioWare, I was very nervous. It was a dream job for me. And I remember walking through the halls one day and I saw the two founders, Ray and Greg, stepping out of an office. And I thought, oh my God, it's Ray and Greg. I have become to really respect and idolize these people to a degree early in my career because of their success, because of the things they made. Were so much in line with where I wanted to be. I thought, okay, it's just my first week, play it cool, don't say anything, just add value, don't rock the boat. And as I was walking by, Greg looked up and he said, oh, hey Patrick. I was shocked. This is my first week at BioWare. There are over 400 people working at BioWare and they're hiring 20 to 30 people like every 2 weeks. Greg had taken the time to know who I am, to know my name, and had stopped what he was doing to say hello. For me, this set the whole tone for what to expect from Ray and Greg. Both of them cared very deeply about the people who worked there. Both of them really wanted everyone to be successful. And they knew the importance of showing that care and saying that I know you, I know your name, and you have value. It really just struck me as being really unusual and exciting to be at a place where the people at the top, I didn't have to introduce myself. They were introducing themselves to me. I think this is a signal, a symptom of that magic that existed there that I want to talk about. Ray and Greg, in addition to knowing all their employees, onboarded every employee. Shortly thereafter, a week or two later, I would be on an orientation and onboarding in which Ray and Greg took hours to walk everyone through what's important, what are the cultural tenets, what makes us BioWare, why is it important. They wanted to make sure everyone was aligned and on the same page about what and who BioWare is and was. You had a chance to ask them questions, to dive deep on what they were building, to understand their vision, and you were invited into building that vision with them. Every morning they had free breakfast. We know about perks, and they can often be a trap in corporate settings. This was different. The person setting out breakfast was Greg's own dad. His dad would every morning put out breakfast, make sure everyone was fed. And I think this came from Greg's background in his family history. In Edmonton, Alberta, it's very much a city of immigrants and blue collar labor working in the oil fields, working on farms. I think that this idea of like feeding people before they went out and did the work, this culture of taking care of people and making sure that they were able to do their best, extended culturally throughout the whole company. And there were multiple instances of employees and their family members working at BioWare. It created a sense of community. It was like a little village where everyone was looking out for each other. And just no matter how hard it got, there would be a support structure for you. The HR department that we encountered at BioWare was incredibly supportive and went above and beyond to make sure that us immigrating from Texas was welcomed and found connections and had found other people who were new to the area. There was constant culture and constant interactions between staff, and the line, for better or for worse, would often bleed between work and play. Ray and Greg were also some of the hardest working people at BioWare. I knew that they were still practicing medicine, but I didn't realize they were doing it full time, working 2 full-time jobs as doctors and studio owners for many, many years prior to being acquired. This took the cash burden off their salaries, off the studio. It allowed them to always have an out so that not everything was riding on a studio. And I think that financial stability and the treatment of the studio as a creative endeavor and a passion, it allowed Ray and Greg to make different kinds of choices that weren't always about the next month's revenue. And BioWare did everything to maintain its cash position and its leverage and relationship so that if it ever needed more time to make something really high quality, they could just take it and they would eat the cost. They would always prioritize having the cash to ensure that quality was achieved, no matter what, quality above all else. This included at times taking employees like animators and having them work on a Canadian public access animation children's show, something that isn't talked about much. I don't even know what the show's called. I just knew that some of the animators had, in the early days of BioWare, worked on a children's animated show for Canadian public access as a way to bring in additional income and cover salaries and keep the doors open and ensure that they had a cash leverage position, were never desperate and put in a bad situation regarding a publisher. In addition to being full-time doctors and full-time studio owners, Ray and Greg also went and got their MBAs while running BioWare. Full-time jobs, going to school at night and weekends. They were always investing and learning and growing their skill sets and their leadership. I'm sure that the Ray and Greg I encountered towards the end of their time with BioWare was the most mature, developed version, and I'm sure it was a process and it took time to get there. But that dedication and growth, I think, reflected an emphasis on growth across the entire company. Their growth mindset, their work ethic, the passion, that was the magic of BioWare. No magic process. They're not better game makers than people at Sony. They're not better game makers than people at whatever studio, but there was a culture and a magic of dedication and care, for better or for worse, drove the success of the studio. And I do think Ray and Greg influenced leaders like Mark Darrah and James Olin, who was the creative director of The Old Republic. And I believe that it has lived on in those leaders. I love BioWare games, and I hope Anthem and Andromeda have provided growth opportunities for those looking to carry on BioWare's legacy. Often when a studio is perpetually successful, as they were up until Andromeda, it can create complacency. It can create this belief that we have something special here. And as people come from outside and inherit that legacy of success, the plot line can get missed. Especially as Ray and Greg stepped out, I do think there is a real challenge in going from even a great EP to a studio head, or going from a discipline lead to now a department head. The skill set required to be great at your craft is very different than a leadership skill set. When I first went into leadership, I botched it. I messed up. I did not do a good job in leadership. Failure is what growth feels like. I do think we may look back in 10, 20 years and say, like, that stumble in BioWare's path in its history was required in order for BioWare to find itself again. It shakes off the complacency. It provides a triage, so you know where the problems are, that you know what to address now, because you have some history to look back on. There's a reason to get better. There's a reason to improve. Challenging and painful as Andromeda and Anthem may have been, I do think it is an opportunity and a moment for BioWare to get back to its form. And I believe it reflects how Ray and Greg grew. They have a growth mindset. There's tremendous humility in Ray and Greg's interactions and their thinking. They preach that as proud as we are of the success we have, nothing guarantees the next success. It was part of that onboarding day that we went to. I think that idea was probably understated when they presented it, because you could even see when I was there, some of the early indications that complacency was starting to take hold. Folks like Mark Darrah and James Olin are certainly discluded from that. They were already like next level leaders when I joined. I am really hopeful for the future at BioWare, and failure really is an opportunity for those at BioWare to adjust and move forward. And failure is not bad if it's growth. If in 10 years we look back, we see success in BioWare, it was because of those failures and the pivots and the learnings from that I think will drive the success. I'm excited to see what's next. I have to be hopeful because I love BioWare games. I went there, it was a dream gig, and I really want it to return as a player to form, because I can't wait to play games from BioWare. If you enjoy this video and you want to see more like it, please subscribe. Please give this video a like. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you loved it. I am Patrick, aka Lordy, and keep your chin up, your heart open. Believe in you. See you soon.